Okay, yeah, so
Back to my childhood, I was 10 years old.
the war.
On December the 13th, 1940, December the 7th, 1941,
So just before you turned 10.
just before I turned 10, I was listening to the radio in the living room. That's the only thing we had was the radio. There was no such thing as television. And in the middle of the show, I don't remember if it was the Lone Ranger or the Shadow Knows. Ha ha ha, who knows, the Shadow Knows. The announcer came on and said there had been an attack on Pearl Harbor, a surprise attack by Japan on the United States. And there was a concern about war, and I was old enough to understand it all, and I ran into the kitchen to get everybody to come in and listen to it. And that's how I found out about the war. The first announcement on the radio, the very first announcement.
Mm-hmm.
So, the war years, I'll tell you about those. The war years we had rationing, so that we had different books for different things, like for meat and for eggs, and I don't know, there were stamps in it, I don't know. My mother had to take care of all of that. And the government put on a program that people could go to learn how to cook and to serve nutritious meals and everything. She went to it, and she learned all that. And she learned to give us nutritious meals. And from then on, that's all we had, was nutritious meals. And that meant a meat or a fish and a vegetable and a potato, or something like that. The three courses, three pieces on your plate. And during the war, there was gas rationing, so we couldn't go very many places. And we had a victory garden. I didn't tell you this one. We had a victory garden in our backyard. And my brother, the one that went to college to learn farming, he was digging up the garden, and I was hanging out with him. He's digging up the garden to make a victory garden. And he hit some concrete, and I said, oh, I didn't think anything of it. That was the world was made of concrete, so of course they had put dirt over the concrete to make a garden. So I didn't think anything of it. And then one time when we were driving, my father took us out to the country, out of the city to the country, fields and fields and fields. I said, where'd they get all the dirt from to cover all the concrete? I really thought the world was made out of concrete. And they had to cover it with dirt too. So that was a little thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything else?
Is it a doll?
Oh, the doll and with the rationing. I was 10, and I had to give up my Deity doll, which is made out of rubber, to the war effort because you had to recycle things. I guess that was the earliest recycling. So I had to donate that to the rubber drive. Think about it. Where'd they get rubber from? From pretty far away, and they couldn't get it anymore. So we had to come up with it somehow. So, can I go on now?
Oh, I do have a question about...
What?
So, being an American Jew, how, during the war, how did people treat American Jews?
We didn't know.
Is it because your community was mostly
Jewish? Well, there was always something, because we lived in an Italian Jewish neighborhood,
right.
Catholics, Jews, and there was always remarks shouted from across the street at us. We didn't shout, "You dirty Catholic," we didn't do that, but they did say things to us. Mm-hmm. We just walk away. They didn't do anything physical, so we just learned to ignore it. We didn't confront it. That's also part of hiding Yeah. So being a Jew during the war, well, we heard about the prejudice and about how hard it was. And as a matter of fact, when I lived in Montreal, we had friends. Well, she had number on her arm. She had been in a concentration camp. Magda, her name was Magda. Can't remember his name. He wasn't in the war because his family got him to England. And his oldest brother, or maybe he did too, they fought in the English Air Force. Somebody was in the English Air Force. And so they had been brought to England, and the older brothers went into the army.
Mm-hmm.
And but then they came to Montreal. He married Magda, and he came to Montreal to live. And so that's how I knew people like that. I had another friend, Ann Entis. Her family was from, you remember the train trip in Dr. Zhivago? Did you see Dr. Zhivago?
No.
Where they take a train trip, they're sent across the whole of Siberia, just this whole train trip across, that or their Jews were rounded up and sent on a train trip. Now, her family was rounded up, and her father had, like scarves and this and that, like he took everything like that from the house. And they had some jewelry that they hid, and some money that they hid. So when they went across I think they took the train. I don't think they were on there because they were Jews, but they were Jews and they were running. And they'd get off at a station, and for one headscarf, he'd get enough food for the whole family to eat for the day. So he traded his way across the trip. And when they finally got to where they were, I guess they were in camps of some kind in Uzbekistan. That's where they were sent to, Uzbekistan. When they got there, they said, with the men, because there were mines that the men could go into, or there were mines that the men could go into. Or they said, who knows how to cook? He put his hand up, and he came home and he said, how do I cook? Yes. He asked his wife right away. And she told him, and he did, and that's how they survived. He didn't want to go into the mines. So I met people like that. It broadened my horizons, that I knew these people. And I knew the world was not good. As much as everybody would try to tell me that, it just didn't compute in my head. The world was hard, and you had to do it yourself, and you had to do what you had to do.
Right.
So living in Montreal was very much a mind-opening world, because I met so many different kinds of people from around the world. French people who came from Paris, people that grew up in Montreal, and they had a very different view. It was different. And then your grandfather got a job.
Well, you didn't finish telling us about how you finished your education.
Oh, my education.
Yes.
So I went on to George Williams. It was $600 a year.
Wow.
And I finished, and I got a major in, I graduated from there with a major in psychology and sociology, double major.
Mm-hmm. So was that just your bachelor's at that time?
That was a bachelor's degree. So then Arnie got a job in Arizona, at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And he was going to get a stipend from the U.S. government because it was in rehabilitation counseling, and they needed people. So he was going to get like $4,000 a year, plus free tuition, and books. And one night I woke up and said, why don't I go for a master's degree in the same thing? Then I'll have another $2,000. So I did. I applied, I was accepted, and that's what we did. We had $6,000 a year. We took all our worldly goods. We had a truck coming. We packed it all up in tea chests. Tea chests are wooden chests that are about so big, they're like a cube, about that big. And we put all our worldly goods in that. And we left them in the garage. We sold our house. And when we got to, on the condition that they let the trucker come and get the stuff, when we had a place to send it to.
Right.
We didn't know about storing it. We didn't know about that. So,
So you went without even having a place to stay?
without having a place to stay, 3 kids, an older car, and $6,000 a year. And we went there, and there was a place, it wasn't a co-op, it was a housing community. There was a pool, there was laundry room, there was, playground. And it was a fancy, very nice one. It had gone bankrupt. So now it was for poor, lower income, which we were, people could get a place there. So we got a 2-bedroom place at first. And we moved in, and it was kind of crowded. And then eventually we got a 3-bedroom place with 2 baths, I think, or not.
Yeah.
Maybe not, 1 bathroom. Because I remember one time Vicki going up the stairs and saying, "You're not the boss of me." I said, "Oh, yes, I am." Boss of me still.
So what was it like raising our parents and Aunt Vicki?
Well, raising them, we were there, in Montreal. They went to school. Public school. Because you could go to Jewish school, you could go to Catholic school, you could go to public school. They went to the English school, where they spoke English, and English public school. And it's just a school, and it was fine. They went to classes. We had a house in Shamedy, which was an island outside of Montreal, and the snow would get so deep, it would be like mountains. And every morning I would be out there shoveling, because Arnie had to go to work, and I had to shovel while he got ready. That's where we ended up living. And in Shamedy, they had fields behind the houses across the way because no developments had happened yet. So I think the kids you should ask your father that. The kids had some fun playing there. I know I buried their turtle in the snowbank. I thought it was dead. It was only hibernating.
Oh, no.
So I killed a turtle. I didn't want them to see the dead turtle. I didn't know what else to do. You couldn't bury it in the snow, in the ground. So I buried it in the snow.
Do they know about this?
What?
Did you know about the turtle?
I didn't remember we had a turtle.
Yeah, well,
You succeeded.
yeah, I succeeded.
Got away with it.
Turtle killer. And in Shamedy, we lived there until we moved. And that's when we came to Arizona. And we drove all the way to Arizona with the trunk filled up and 3 kids and us in the car. And off we went. Did we have 2 cars at that time? No, 1 car.
About bought a second car when we were in Arizona.
What? I think we had one car. And we took turns driving.
I think the car was bought in Detroit. Dad went down to buy a new car.
What? I can't hear you.
Dad went back down to buy a new car in Detroit. I think it was like a blue
We had a
sedan.
blue car, yeah. And then when we were down there, we also had a convertible, an old
Yeah, we
convertible.
bought that out. I remember going out and buying that with him.
Yeah,
It was used.
yeah.
He bought it from
What
someone.
year would this have been?
Got me. Oh, we went down to Arizona. When did I get my degree?
66.
Ask him when.
1966 we went down to Arizona.
1966? Okay,
How old were you?
I was 7.
yeah. See, now he can help me remember things.
He exists now.
He
He's
just
around.
did, yeah.
Which?
Yeah, I was so raising them in Montreal. You know, like I was a homemaker, and I just took some classes, and I finished up another. I graduated while I was in Montreal.
How was
So
Arizona?
somehow I did it.
How
And
was
then-
I know Vicky once told me, "How did you do it?" You know, like we never knew you went to school. You're always doing homework. When did you do the homework? They knew I was going to school, but when did I do the homework? Then we moved to Tucson. Big change from Arizona. From snow, feet high snow every winter. We went to the desert in Tucson. It was quite a change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the housing, the project where we lived. I can't call it a project. It was like a housing
It's an apartment complex.
apartment complex. Yeah,
It just like a kind, but it was organized differently. Not quite co-op,
yeah,
not quite apartment, but it was
Yeah.
apartment complex.
yeah. And I think they had a lot of room to play. And we had a babysitter when one of us couldn't be home. There was a pool there, and I remember getting so tan there. And I had long black hair then, down my waist. It was the style. And somebody asked me what tribe I was from. I wanted to tell them David, but I told them I'm not. You know. Anyway,
School? You went
Yeah,
to school?
so you started off going to a free school, and then you had to pay for school, and then
well,
now
$600
right.
a year. Now I'm getting.
now
a
you're getting
stipend.
paid to go to school.
Right.
Nice.
Very different than today. So I took advantage of my knowledge, and the thing was, when I came to Arizona for my master's degree, I was a solid A student, got 1B, because I was taking the classes I liked. So from being a B student, I became an A student when I got to what I liked, and the competition was a little bit different. And I liked it there. I loved the program. I learned a great deal from one guy. His name was Cliff Abe. He was Japanese. You know the Abe, that name, the ABE? The guy who's prime minister of Japan or something? Abe? He's a big, important guy. Same name, but I don't know that they're related. But he was a teaching assistant. I learned a lot from him. And then there was another guy. Somehow I learned a lot from him also. I can't remember his name. For the life of me, I don't know. I don't even remember what he looks like. This other one's personality just was so big, yeah, I guess. But I learned a lot about counseling and therapy and how to do my craft from those classes. So we had a lot of practice. We practiced on camera, and then when we review how we came across, we had internships. I went to a nursing home, and I did counseling and therapy with some of the senior citizens in the nursing home, and then I was critiqued and all of that, and it was a really good program. And then I graduated from that before Arnie got his doctorate, of course, because mine was classes and did I write a thesis? I don't think so. I just needed to finish all the classes, and it was my internships and everything that I had to pass.
All right, let's hold on a
And-
second.